I'm tiny.
We're on.
We're live.
I'm Roger.
And I'm not. I'm Bruce Martin.
Yes.
And we are
brothers.
The Inglorious Bastards.
From the same mother.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. I'm sure people were wondering.
Just to prove that this is entirely unscripted.
Yeah, it's true.
We're just planning today probably to make fools of ourselves.
So I'm not feeling real well.
You look awful.
I'm losing weight, so I'm going to have to.
Is that why I'm so much larger?
The shirt I'm wearing is a little form.
I thought I was actually holding my weight pretty well. You're making me look massive.
Sure, I'll
if
sit
I can
up.
Scrunch a little.
My wife likes it when I sit up. The pillow's a nice touch. You got to admit that's the
yeah. Okay.
The girls did that. So, big news for 2020. We're recording this on August 11th, and two of the major college football the entire conferences have already called the season. So Pac-10's out, Big 10's out.
And the MAC. I mean, I know they're not a Power 5, but the MAC also, yeah.
The Mid-American Conference.
Yeah. Well, the MAC started the whole thing. It's actually the MAC's fault.
Really?
Seriously, the MAC conference did it first, and then literally people start saying, oh, the dominoes are going to fall. So that was genius on the part of the MAC because they got to be the trendsetter.
Are they sponsored by Kraft? Kraft Mac? You know,
he's sick today. That's
I am sick. So
some of the things that he says that normally might be funny.
Hiking a week in the Sierras, so I lost like 6 or 8 pounds just doing that 50 miles, which was great.
Which is fairly normal.
Then at the beginning of the month, I started a whole new depression medication, which apparently works like a diet pill as well, because I'm just not hungry a lot. It's really weird. So I literally forced down breakfast this morning.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I know. Can you imagine how weird that is to not just be excited about breakfast?
No.
I'm make myself eat.
Plenty of people
Santa.
Who may want to try out what your depression med is.
Well, it's Zoloft. In case you're wondering, it's an SSRI.
We're not recommending. We're not We're not giving any medical advice here.
But selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. I'm learning a lot about this. How serotonin is sort of the feel-good chemical in your brain, and my body does not manage that very well. It's a little bit like a diabetic who has to have insulin to help their body manage sugar. My brain needs an SSRI to help it manage serotonin. In other words, keep more serotonin in the system, which is I was reading about it last night because I'm trying to understand even more and more how depression works. Because a lot of people don't understand that depression it's a physical medical condition. So they just think it's a series of circumstances that can exacerbate it. Absolutely.
Right.
But it's a medical condition that needs to be treated because of body chemistry.
Yeah.
And in our family, it's hereditary. So grandmother,
right,
dad, and myself. So just want you to know, if you're out there, and in 2020, I realized because of the way things have happened this year, a lot more people are experiencing depression. And some of that can be circumstantial, but it's also worth noting that it's a treatable medical condition. So I just want other people to know out there, because I'm feeling 100% better than I was even a month ago in terms of just the way I feel. I mean, I realize I've got a sinus infection, but other than that, very solid.
And the church hasn't always handled that well. I mean, sort of depression was sort of at one point, boy, you didn't even talk about that.
If you had more faith, or if you trusted God,
it's going to be a spiritual problem.
Right. If you have anxiety, you must not be trusting God. Well, no, what happens with anxiety is my body goes into a fight or flight response, but there's no danger.
There's no threat. There's no obvious threat.
Right.
Yep.
So your body is responding to something. There's a chemical imbalance that's going on there. Anyway, all that to say, I do feel a whole lot better, but I'm having to really work hard at eating.
I'll be checking in with you. Did you have your lunch today?
I will have lunch. Typically, if I eat breakfast, I'll eat lunch and dinner but if I skip breakfast, I literally don't get hungry the whole day.
Really?
Yeah. And that's weird, isn't it?
That is.
So what to say? So the college football season, you think the SEC is going to follow suit?
Well, not if Governor Kay Ivey has anything to do with it.
What did she say? Did she say something about it?
Well, she was just saying a little what you were, what I think pre-podcast we were talking about. I think she noted that this football is needed for morale.
Right.
And so just touching on that thing were you saying we need something to look forward to?
We do. Right.
It's part of that weirdness with the whole COVID thing going on. Okay, you're taking certain precautions and so on, but it's that whole thing of how one thing you're doing makes this better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe people are less likely to get COVID, but they're more likely to be suicidal, or they're more likely to be,
or to have domestic abuse and other things. And that just breaks my heart.
And addictive kinds of,
right.
So, and not putting down where any of us are supposed to land with that,
right.
but I think you're right. A lot of people have been looking forward to
college football.
Right. And even to me, I'd like to believe the NFL is going to play out, but the preseason went away, and
it's an interesting thing. So here's one thing that I noticed, that because I was watching the PGA Championship over the weekend when I wasn't camping with women, which is
wait, you can't just drop that in without.
All right, so over the weekend, I had 3 ladies that signed up for my Walls of Jericho trip. So it was me and 3 ladies out in the wilderness, which is great. When I came back, Sunday was a great trip, by the way. But when we came back, I was watching the PGA Championship, and they're announcing their names on the tee. Now, there's no fans. So they're like, on the tee right now, Roger Martin. And you're used to the fans, raucous and it's crickets.
Oh, and by the way, so I watched a video clip, and I forgot the guy's name. He hits a hole-in-one
and claps
on a par 3.
Yeah.
And again, so it's funny, you're watching the video, there's silence. Then you hear this like solitary clap, and he doesn't even and then finally he's looking, and he realizes, and he starts cheering. But it's that weirdness of, because normally a hole-in-one, I mean, it's going to erupt
like you did when I had mine.
Right.
You just go crazy.
Right.
But can you imagine, so if they decide to do college football with no fans, I mean, you can televise. Here's the thing. The golf was like I'm used to. I mean, in terms of what, but there's no people.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It's like I enjoyed watching the golf, but there's something about the gallery and the crowd and the roars when a birdie is made or an eagle. So can you imagine? Because college football, in my mind, all football is built around momentum. And a lot of the fans get into it, and there's an energy, there's a turnover. Can you imagine there's a turnover and nobody claps?
No, right. No. It's even for
there's a bad call and nobody boos.
I'm thinking for the players, right? What do you
I mean, would it feel like practice?
Yeah, I mean, even psychologically.
But let me tell you, I would watch it, people. So if you want to play football with no one in the stands, I'm telling you, I'm game. I'm up for it.
By the way, side note, so the guy who won the PGA.
Yep.
You remember his name?
Mm-hmm. The Wanamaker Trophy was won by.
I don't remember either. So
his name is. He's a
23
kid.
years old.
Kid.
But no,
Torakawa. I'm close.
We'll go with that.
All right.
I wanted to invent another name.
No,
I don't know. It was a.
I think it was. I think that is.
No, but I want to. So
okay.
I'm into fun trivia. Okay. So his final 2 days, his score from his Saturday, Sunday total cumulative score. Where do you think it ranks?
Morikawa.
I
was close.
So his final 2 day score, where do you think it ranks with in the top 10 of best final 2 day scores in a major championship?
Well, I'm going to guess number 1.
Yes, it's number 1.
Really?
Of all the golfers who played,
how many under was he over the last 2 days?
A 23-year-old kid posts the best Saturday, Sunday score in a major. I hope I'm getting that right. I just thought that was a fun fact.
He was minus 13 overall.
Right.
Do you remember what the number was that he shot? He might have been minus 13 on the last 2 days because he was minus 6 on Sunday.
Right. He
had a 7 under on Saturday because all of a sudden I think he did. Well, I don't know.
It may be. Yeah.
I think he started it What? He obviously started at 700. I'm a little out of sorts today, Roger. I'm not going to lie. I'm not as, all to say. So one more thing on college football, and then we can talk about important things. But Tennessee had it's ridiculous, amazing recruiting year. We've got all these 4-star, 5-star recruits. It's it's going to be, it's the year.
It's a once in a century recruiting class.
And there's no class.
There's not going to be a season.
So I'm just praying that we'll have or we can have 10,000 fans spaced 8 feet apart throughout a stadium. You can still make a lot of noise.
I'll say this. If the SEC does indeed actually play football, their chances of having a national championship from the conference go way up.
That's, I hadn't thought about that, but that's true.
Let's just say.
So here's the thing. If the SEC decides to keep going, the ACC will obviously decide to keep going because those two are right there pretty regularly.
Yep.
Feel bad for Ohio State because they would be literally on the outside looking in. That would be weird. I guess you'd put an asterisk beside the national champion for this year.
Well, aren't we putting an asterisk by everything in 2020?
The whole year's been an asterisk.
The year is an asterisk.
Yeah, I'm just So even over the weekend and talking to the ladies in camp, we were all pretty much ready for 2021. It's weird, and maybe that is the human desire to even look forward to something because it feels like you can't look forward to anything in 2020. For instance, I've got 2 speaking engagements that are still scheduled for October and November.
Good luck.
But I'm not feeling real good about them. And I hate that because I love going places and being with people and speaking. And I've done 2 virtual conferences this year, which has been surprisingly good. But it's we need something to look forward to. Maybe this is going to be the heaven podcast. Well, I realize more and more. One of the passages I've been focused on and even sharing more in counseling is from Revelation 21, where Jesus says, "I will be their God, and they will be my people. I will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or pain or disease or any of that." He said, because the old order of things has passed away.
Yeah.
And I realized 2020 has been a reminder to me that we are living in the old order. Pandemic, global unrest, economic crisis, racial tension and unrest, injustice. It just feels like this has been a year of the old order. And one day, and that's what I look forward to, that one day.
Yeah. And it feels like the thing companion to it. It feels like you can't do anything about any of it.
Mm-mm,
I mean,
right.
It's like we can't, this COVID thing, we just can't seem to figure out or beat. And the racial unrest, it's so complicated and there's so many strands.
Yep.
And one person's got this definition and and then you just look at sort of the political climate, not just in the US, but the world, and things that just seem to get so harsh and it just doesn't feel like they're answers. I guess when you were talking, I had this little maybe wake up moment. How do I say this? So we're looking at 2020 and saying, boy, I want to cancel this year and get to the next year because everything's going wrong. We can't fix stuff. I can't seem to. And it just hit me. How many people in the world that was their 2019.
Yeah.
That was their first 14 years. That was their, I just looked at it here. We're in America. We're grieving the loss of right now about 6 months. You start looking February, March when things started getting loony and really, so we're kind of just aching for 6 months that have gone south. But how many people has this, we're talking about the longing for the next day because we've had a bad 6 months. We're talking about the next.
What about a person who's been in a refugee camp for 3 years now?
Right.
For 7 years now. nothing to look forward to. No, you can't make plans for the future. You're trying to survive a day.
Right.
Food and water for this day.
Wholly dependent on, you
Yeah.
can't even control, you're wholly dependent on whether someone brings food and water. You can't work.
Nope.
And that's, which is,
which we're made for.
right. Which is psychologically and emotionally very, very important. It's even for activity. It's important. It's good for us. It's just this, a wake up moment for, and maybe it's yeah, it's the grace of God reminding us that this isn't the end of the story. This isn't all, because even for those people for whom really life out of control has been their entire life.
Yeah.
Barely surviving has been their entire life.
It's been their norm.
The threat of dying any day has been their norm, their entire life. There's this word that this is not the whole story.
Yeah.
God grieves and aches these losses more than any one of us does, but he's working on a larger story. We're in the middle of a larger story.
Yeah. That was good. I told Roger earlier today, I said, with this sinus infection I've got, this could be the silent podcast from Bruce, which I know is a great loss, but that was it was just very sobering, because I found myself thinking about people that live in that every single day. And then I'm complaining about college football, or, I mean, just trivial things. And I will say this, yesterday I experienced a lot of just gratefulness looking at 2020, and even looking at different ways that God has provided for our family this year, which has been, because it started off so rough with losses and engagements being canceled. But then I've seen God provide in other ways this year that's just been beautiful. So I realize even in this unknown, and maybe I'm used to, this is the thing, I don't see myself as a control freak, but then I don't know that most control freaks would. But I realize God's providing day by day for our family. It really is a daily bread thing. I was thinking this morning, Jesus never promised annual salary, which is the way I tend to think about. We want to have this set, or know that this is, he just daily bread.
Yeah.
Food and clothing. Didn't even, when he said, don't worry about anything. He said, God knows what you need: food, clothing, water. He didn't, interestingly enough, mention shelter. I've always looked at that passage, and there's several passages where Jesus talks about, like, because Jesus didn't have, shelter. As we enter, he said, the foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. So what we think is essential for life, Jesus did not. And again, it's one of the things I love about even backpacking. It's very simple. You're carrying everything you need.
Yeah.
Have a little tent you set up at night, and
you mentioned maybe this should be the Heaven podcast, or the and maybe one of the gifts of COVID or this stretch again is getting what are the most precious, what are the things we value most. And this reminder again that stuff, things, even health and so on, these aren't what ultimately bring us the most joy. Last time I visited Mom and Dad a couple weeks ago, they said, we've been thinking about heaven a lot more. We've been thinking a lot about that. And at 83 and 85, I think that's, anyway, they're my mom and dad, and dad's legally blind and diabetes and sleep apnea.
It's 81 and 85, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, Mom's horrified that you just said that. You just slapped 2 years on Mom.
I think she's 82 and turns 83 in September.
Nope, she's 81, turns 82. Dad turns 86. I know this because I'm 56, and in September, Dad's always exactly 30 years ahead of me.
Okay.
and mom's 4 years behind him. Hey, who knew? Martin trivia.
There you have
Actually,
it.
if David watches this podcast, which I highly doubt, but if he does, he will know for sure because
Yeah, tune in, Dave.
now I'm starting to
correct us.
wonder. I'm like, maybe.
Well, when I was picking up prescriptions for mom, I thought the birth date was, anyway, we'll get it with, yeah, we can stay out of the math. But they were saying, so, and then mom just had her, a second knee replacement surgery. And we got to talk, we were sitting there talking about that word in Ecclesiastes, I think it's 11. And it sounds like this wise old man, but old. And he's saying, he starts using this language, this picturesque language. He says the grinders cease to work. And so the teeth, he talks about the almond,
and the almond tree
begins to blossom, and which is all white. And you're more fearful to go outside. And then he said, and then there's this moment where you just say, I no longer have pleasure. And I remember
your life in the days of your youth, because the days will come when you find no joy in them.
Right. And just this reality that really that is where we're headed. But I think for mom and dad, they were looking, saying, whereas now, okay, things have slowed down. Everything takes so much longer. They were talking about, just so parts of life, even that you enjoy, they involve more labor, just getting up in the morning and just how much longer. And we just had this beautiful, honest conversation about that weariness that is mixed in still with the joy,
right?
The grace of God. He's at work, but more and more, just that longing. Okay, this isn't our final home, and by the grace of God, I mean that's why Jesus came. And that's why more and more with all the particularly in a political re-election year and all that kind of stuff. I realize that God has focused me more and more on, Bruce, just keep proclaiming the kingdom. Keep proclaiming the kingdom. I was sharing with Marlene a couple of weeks ago. After I came back from the week-long trip, which was a good reset for me. And I realized, I'm very blessed in the sense that I do know what my purpose is. I know my sense of calling. I know we've talked a little bit about that, but it is to testify to the gospel of God's grace. It's just as long as I have breath, proclaim this gospel of the kingdom, because it goes and what I've shared on both of my last two trips in the discipleship time, around the fire was the kingdom within. And it's not a geopolitical kingdom, and it transcends all other kingdoms and empires, and it will never end, and it's unshakable. And I realized, even as I'm sharing that, there's a light going on in people's eyes of, we're in this unshakable kingdom, no matter what is going on in the world around us. And now, in light of what you shared about even people that live in a COVID as normal life, where you're surviving day to day, the kingdom has to represent so much joy and anticipation and something so much greater, because this life isn't that good. And that's been my concern for myself, even in the United States of America. My life is it's pretty easy. It's good. There's so many things I take for granted every single day. Even with COVID, our lives are still, you're saying it, we're still able to pay the bills. We're,
I dropped my car off at the shop this morning. You get some work done on it. I think I got a fan belt or a water pump going out or whatever. But I realized, I have the resources to drop it off and pay for that. Whereas I know there's some single moms that they have to wait till the car breaks down and then try to figure out some way to pay for that. And so again yesterday was feeling a lot of gratitude and grateful even in this season, because I see God's hand and I see Him providing, and maybe COVID is just a great reminder of what's really important: people and relationships and caring for folks and
enjoying God.
Yes.
because this there's so many ways you can talk about the gospel and what that is, but this just beautiful reality that continues to blow me away, and it is maybe the single most God wants to be with us.
Yeah.
No, really, everything about the gospel. I mean, even when you look at Jesus coming, so Jesus comes, and this immaterial spirit God takes on this tangible, deteriorating body like we have. He comes to be with us, but that's the tip of the iceberg, because what he's saying is, oh no, I don't want to just be with you now. What I'm doing right now, why I'm coming, is I want to be with you forever. It's that thing of I just coming to fix your sin problem, which is a serious
problem,
right? And it has lots of implications.
Yes,
but the one implication about sin that's most troubling is the distance from God. It's the gap it's created. It's and still, I'm saying this right now, but one of the hardest things to believe is that God delights in being with me. Whatever else, the next life, heaven, the bigger picture looks like, whatever other glories, or it's being with God and finding that satisfaction that can't be taken away. Jesus called this treasure this treasure that can't erode. It doesn't get old. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. I've had the thought sometimes. Okay, heaven. Will I get bored? No.
Oh, it's a new heaven and a new earth. Yeah. I was talking to someone this week, even in a counseling session. When we think about a new heaven and a new earth, well, it's going to be like this, only better. I mean, in other words, it's going to be physical and tangible, and all of those things. Right. When we think of heaven, we think of spirit life, intangible, all of that. And yet it's a beautiful word, even that Jesus says to the criminal that's dying on one side, that says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And he said, today you'll be with me in paradise, which is this incredible. When I think of paradise, I think of like a Caribbean island with azure blue waters and shade and beauty and wonder. And so to imagine that it would be any less than, and this is another thing that I realized that COVID has been, where it's been good for me. I realized how much I love and need the outdoors, and how beautiful the outdoors is. Just being, because again, when we're watching football or golf or whatever else, we're experiencing something from our living room that's on this two-dimensional screen. And yet when I get out in the wilderness and I realize, oh my goodness, there's so much beauty just all around us. And COVID's reminded me again, boy, being outdoors is such a beautiful thing, and God is with us.
So isn't that the odd thing? If we're circling back around to where we started, maybe losing the football season isn't as bad as it initially feels, because where God could be saving us is moving us toward there's some things that have been fun and God loves fun. He's created us for joy, but maybe there's some deeper joys that you've been missing out on because you've gotten so enamored with your toys and your shows and your events, and that you've actually started, moving away from the relationships, not just with your family, but with God, with other people and neighbors.
And that's something I realize right now I'm looking forward to over and over again. Like this weekend, we're doing an after party at my house with the people that went on the Sierras trip, but I'm loving community. You can. But even when we went to Rosie's last week and we celebrated, the birthdays of the girls.
That was great.
That was just so much. You laughed so I haven't seen Roger laugh that hard or that loud. I mean, people in the restaurant are like, what is going on over there?
I've forgotten what got me so tickled.
Well, it was when Marie talked about she was.
Oh no, don't.
The last thing her father remembers is her poking him in the eye when she was trying to feed him some juice, and so that was. But it was.
I'm sure I wasn't laughing at that. I'm sure
It was the way Marie
I was
said
laughing at it was the way Marie said it.
But I've been loving community, time with people. So, and maybe because COVID has made everything, I can't even shake hands with people right now. I'm a big touch person, so I love to hug people. And, right now we're doing elbows. If a
Just
person
not
feels
the same thing.
No, if someone feels really, over the top, they might do a fist bump. See, Rod, you just left me hanging.
Yep.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, that was precious. Right.
Actually, well, you realize David's loving this part of it. David is definitely he's the no hugging brother. So Roger and I deliberately, when we get together for family gatherings, we'll give David a big, long,
the uncomfortably long.
Yeah. And you go full frontal and just bring him in close. I just love that,
and there's a stiffening.
Yes,
there's a stiffening.
It's the mannequin man. David goes mannequin man. Don't say a word. And
yeah,
it's great fun.
He's there for a few seconds when it's the normal hug, but then when it's that beyond that comfort level. But we aren't getting those hugs, and that's a.
So with all the things having said about I'm ready to get to 2021, I guess I'm really not, because it's maybe we're learning even the importance of presence.
I think so. I mean, and I think it is actually a word of caution. Of even life will be better when all my circumstances are better. Life will be better when it's more in control.
I can enjoy God more when I can fill in the blank,
or even
when
life.
I'm able to.
Maybe we've just come down to believe life is best. I can enjoy life when it's just like I want it to be, and I think that's getting. I think that's a good word. That. Maybe stop talking. Okay, I can't wait till we get past 2020. Let's stay in today and see what God's up to.
Yes. And here's the interesting thing about even, because I've been jokingly talking to people, hey, we're ready for 2021. What if we're not? I mean, in other words, there's no guarantee that 2021 is going to be, quote, better than 2020.
No, right. No, and all the evidence, which, in other words,
we tend to see life in these increments, like a year is going to make a difference. Like December 31st, something magically happens.
Right.
Oh, it's going to be totally different now.
Well,
no, it's just January 1st.
My wife, Joy, we had an honest talk the other night. And she said what I think a lot of people have said. She said, oh, I never dreamed it going this long. And so when we it was the thought of, okay, we first had to
shut things down. We're going to nip it in the bud.
We got to do the mask thing. We're going to do the social distancing thing. May have to have that for 2 or 3 months. But it's turned out that it's longer. And I think this is the problem where you start pinning on, okay, I'll be happy when, I'll be satisfied. It'll be better. We got to take today. Honestly, we don't even know whether we'll make 2021. We don't know.
Nope.
I'm talking about Roger, whether Roger does. So there is this loss, I think, when we start looking past today and say, okay, whatever is happening today, whatever things I wish were different. I see a microcosm of that sometimes with the weather.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're just having this miserably hot weather, and it's almost like, I just can't enjoy. So I can't wait till September or October when it's going to cool off. And it's this idea when the conditions are perfect, then life will be good. I'll be enjoying it, and
when the conditions
are perfect.
Doesn't exist.
But exactly, doesn't exist. So don't miss the life and the moments that we have right here today with whatever's going on. Maybe that's the most important takeaway from today is, don't let COVID enforce the lie that when your circumstances are better, you'll be better. You'll be happier. I don't think that's,
No. And just thinking of reading this morning, Jesus, what he talked about, what makes a person unfruitful with their life. In other words, Jesus would always talk about bearing fruit, this living out the way of Christ. But he said the worries of this life and anxieties and the deceitfulness of wealth. It's just an interesting, those are things that can cause people to be unfruitful. And I'm like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to miss this season. We can be fruitful in this season. We can actually be thriving in this season. You know, Jesus said it's to the Father's glory that you bear much fruit. So it's not after we get through this year. Now I can do more discipleship next year. I can do more speaking next year. I'm taking seriously the opportunities that I have this year, whether that's on the trail or that's in the office with counseling or whether that's even, you know, virtual conferencing with people. We can be bearing fruit right now. And don't think that this is a season lost. Even for Tennessee, it potentially could be a season lost. Actually, if they don't do the football season, we're undefeated for this year.
That's right.
So the last time we were undefeated was 1998. So this is big. I know I just went from the really important to the absolute trivial, but we talk about it swinging wildly,
right,
from the trivial to the important.
Well, you're illustrating though that a negative could actually be a positive, and I think this is.
I didn't pick up on that. I like that you credited me with that. Thank you. That's good.
But and maybe that's a good finish. Is we're seeing it's mindset affects everything, and if you're just focusing on this is a minus, it's what you were saying. You wouldn't have dreamed, for instance, that actually a Zoom conference could be effective. The reality is we might still say, oh, in person is better, but we've learned something about possibilities.
Yes.
You know, it's the negative did create and we've said
the obstacle created an opportunity.
Yes.
And it is
good. That's a good word.
I thought of that. I said that.
2020.
I said that on the trail this weekend. I thought it was so pithy. I'm like, every obstacle is a potential opportunity.
Right. But I think most would say 2020 has been an obstacle, and we might look at specific kind of things.
Yeah.
But I think that's true. I think there is opportunity, and it starts with, okay, I can see even whatever crap you're encountering today. I'm just talking about just today. We're doing this on August 12th, but whenever you're listening or whatever is happening on this day that is a minus is an obstacle, and just not just trying to blow some cute phrase. There always is opportunity in the obstacle, but there's not if you just focus on the obstacleness.
Well, that's a good word. Obstacleness.
I think I just invented a cool new word.
Obstaclivity. That is the propensity for an obstacle to appear.
Otherwise known as Murphy's Law.
Yeah, well, that's true. Murphy's
Obstaclivity.
Obstaclivity. We
come up with new words.
We made 2 new words today. The English language has been enhanced, I think, somewhat greatly throughout the podcast today. So I think we would be remiss not to talk about a potential sponsor during the COVID-19 season 2 podcast.
Yes.
Inglorious Bastards. And
this obstacle that is 2020 could be your opportunity.
Yes.
To
soar.
Be sponsored by us. And
No. We're not sponsoring anybody. We're asking them to sponsor us.
Be promoted by us.
Yes, right.
With you paying us large amounts of money.
Yes, that's
kind of how we envision sponsorship working.
That seems gratuitous the way you said it. I was
okay. So this is what episode are we on? Just finishing.
This is season 2, episode
4. I think it is. Okay.
I think it's 4.
And Bruce is going to decide when this season ends.
And I'm going to decide whether or not we have audio with this one. Because if the 2 of you that tuned in for the last one where there was no audio, that's on me. That's not on Roger. Although his audio wasn't great because
we apparently are not audio geniuses.
We have fixed that problem. We've got 2 microphones now. Okay.
We have 2 things that are likely not to work.
Wouldn't it be bad if both of those were turned off right now? after all the testing we did.
Yeah, that would.
So this is Bruce and Roger signing off. It's the podcast that would never end, and we're landing the plane.
Let's just land it.
No skips.
All right.
We'll see you next time.